Ka'alau Yah Ba'ashem Yahawashi Ba'ashem Rakakadash. All praise, honor, and glory go to the Most High Yahawah in the name of His Son Yahawashi. And I want to do a lesson. You know, we have elect women out there, that are following their husbands just as Sarah did Abraham. And, those women will get delivered. Then we have some women that, who will come in the last moments and get themselves a husband. And even though they may have done some shameful things and they may have not been completely obedient through the mercies of the Most High Yahawah, they will be delivered basically only because of the mercies of David, more so that they can, bear children, in the kingdom. They're going to have some concubines that will make it, of other nations. And at the end of the day, it's all the Lord's rule. It's all His plan. It's what He desires and who He desires to save. But I wanted to come from Genesis 19, and we'll actually go to chapter 18 first, because I want to really get some understanding of how Sarah, was granted, her barren womb to be blessed and bring forth a child, which would be Isaac, Slakia, and how, she represents the elect woman. But then I want to get into chapter 19 and talk about Lot, and because we all know the story of Lot's wife, but I wanted to come with a different perspective. I wanted to show how the Lord put it on Lot's heart to make even his 2 virgin daughters expendable towards protecting the angels representing the men of the Lord. And how later on those 2 daughters did an abominable act by getting their father drunk and sleeping with him, and from those 2 women doing that act became 2 nations that have been used to be against the Israelites throughout the course of the scriptures. 2 nations that, even though they are Hebrew, they are not the chosen. But if you go over first, the point I want to get to is in Genesis 19:8, but I want to lead up to it. So this talks about the birth of Isaac, promised, and you'll see that Abraham was approached by 3 men, one representing the Lord. And it says in verse 1, it says, "And Yahawah appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent door in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when they saw him, he ran to meet them from the tent door and bowed himself toward the ground and said, My master, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourself under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread and comfort you in your hearts. And after that, you shall pass on, therefore, you shall come to your servant. And he said, Do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent, and to Sarah said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal knead, and make cakes upon the earth. And Abraham ran into the herd and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it to a young man. And he hasted to dress it. And he took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them. And he stood them under the tree, and they did eat. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? And he said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return with thee according to the times of life. And lo, Sarah, thy wife, will have a son. And Sarah heard the tent door, which was behind him. So you see, they were coming to, bring the blessing of Yatazak, which in the spirit, if Yahawashi, um, you know, bless her womb. Now, later on, it goes into about how these three men, well, two of the men, went about the way to what? To destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Because in verse 20 it says, and Yahawah said, because the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because the sin is very grievous, I will go down now and see whether they have done altogether according to the cry of it, which is come unto me, and if not, I will know. So basically, it's like my eyes a little burning. So basically, the wickedness of Sodom and Gomorrah was crying out to the Lord, and he had intended to destroy it. And we know the story about Abraham pleading for Lot's life. So now we can go over to 19. And in Genesis 19:1 it says, and there came two angels to Sodom, and even at Lot, and sat in the gate of Sodom, and Lot, seeing them, rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, behold, now my Lord is turning, I pray, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned unto him and entered into his house, and he made them a feast, and he did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. So basically, Lot knew what the city was all about. He didn't want them to stay out on the street. And as you'll see, the men of that city were wicked. They wanted to do abominable acts with the angels. It says, before they lay down in verse 4, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter, and they called unto Lot and said to him, where are the men which came to thee that night? Bring them unto us, that we may know them. And Lot went out of the door unto him, and shut the door after him, and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. So Lot was defending the angels. Now, ultimately, the angels could, the power of the Lord, he could have did whatever he wanted to the men. But, and you'll see later that what the men did, they actually put, smoke blindness on the men of Sodom and Gomorrah, so they couldn't find the door of Lot's house. But the point I want to get to is in point 8, because, I was just watching this video from the brother in Dallas, go by the name Remnant Saved, and he was talking about Isaiah 3, and he went to a deep understanding of how our women were in that time and why the Lord punished them. He was going into depths about, how they were doing hair shows, and, the Lord smote their hair, and, it got me to think about all the different women that go against these scriptures, mainly the order, mainly uplifting themselves, exalting themselves above a man of the Lord, or, the situation that the Lord has set them in. Because ultimately, women don't like to be uncomfortable. They don't like to be in situations where they are uncomfortable and they, can't. They don't feel exalted. They don't feel like they're special. And when they don't feel special, they pretty much rebel. They do what they want to do, and they want to do what they want to do because Esau, Edom has given them that right in this country. But just like, the scripture here, women got to understand, yes, if you are the elect, and this is for the elect woman, I say this, if you are the elect woman and you are doing what the scripture is saying to do, you are following your head, you are being subjected towards your man, this is not for you. But if you are one of those women that have a problem with subjection, have a problem with following, you may want to take heed to this next verse, because at the end of the day, this is how the Lord feels about even virgin women. It says in verse 8, behold, now I have two daughters which have not known men, that be virgins. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do to them as is good to your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. So he was willing to protect these men that, angels that he didn't know personally. He had 2 daughters. He was willing to give to the men to do whatever they want. But the men were perverse, and they were, abominable. So they really just wanted the men. But the whole point is to tell the story how the women were expendable. Now let's think about the women today. Do they think that they're expendable? Do they think that they, are not high value? No, they all think that they have something special to give to men. Or they're light of men's eyes. Though they've been with multiple men, though they've been, especially in America, you'd be hard pressed to find a virgin. These were virgin women, and the story, so we know that it's the Lord's movie. Lot made them expendable to the men of the city to do whatever they wanted to do. Just think about it like this, a man that wants to be with another man, he's a freak. He's perverted. So if they would have accepted that offer, they probably would have did who knows what. If you actually go to Judges 19, you'll see what I mean. Judges 19, same thing. Let's start in verse 23. 22, it says, now as they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, certain sons of Belial, beset the house round about, and beat at the door, and spoke to the master of the house, the old man, saying, bring forth the men that came to thine house, that we may know him. And the man, the master of the house, went out unto them, and he said unto them, nay, my brethren, I pray you, do not so wickedly, seeing that this man has come to mine house. Do not this folly. Behold, here is my daughter, a maiden, and his concubine. Them I will bring out now, and humble you then, and do with them that seemeth good unto you. But unto this man do not the vile thing. But the men would not hearken to him. So the man took his concubine and brought her. So the man took his concubine and brought her forth unto him. And they knew her and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go. Then came the woman in the dawning of the day and fell down at the door of the man's house where the Lord was till the night. So basically, they used and abused her all night till they, pretty much she was done with it. She lost her life. So this is how the Lord, can make a woman expendable. Because at the end of the day, he calls our women to be, subjective, as Sarah, as Judith, as Susanna, as Leah. He wants our women, Rebecca. He wants our women to be in that mindset, yet they choose to be who they are right now. And the Lord allowed Lot to offer his virgin daughters to them. And let's see what happened to these virgin daughters lately. This is 19 and 30. Genesis said Lot went up into Zoar after they were delivered. His wife got turned to a pillar of salt, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. He dwelt in the cave, and he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man on the earth to come unto us as after the manner of all the earth. So they thought they were the only ones left in the earth. They thought the whole earth had been destroyed. He said, come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. You see? And they made their father drink with wine that night. And the first one went in and lay with his father, and he perceived not that she lay down with him. And she arose, and it came to pass on the morrow, the firstborn said to the younger, behold, I lay yesterday with my father, let us make him drink when the night also, and go thou in and lie with them, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down. When she arose, thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and she called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son, called her name Benami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon until this day. And you go into the history, you'll see that we always have problems with the Moabites and the Ammonites. You know, so ultimately, I just wanted to bring out that lesson to help you. Just the women that that are teetering on the fence, who have a problem with subjection, who don't see the value of being an elect woman, because that's really what it comes down to. Sarah was a barren woman, but she still followed her husband. She still did what her husband wanted her to do. She was in complete subjection, and the Lord blessed her with bringing in Yatazak. Yatazak was the one that was chosen to bring uh, Jacob and Esau, who in the end will be the two main characters of what we're going through right now. Jacob being the chosen one, Esau being the hated. So ultimately, you know, these women out here, we don't understand why you don't think the Lord will make you expendable, you know, when He's done it so many times. When He's positioned women to be that way in the scriptures, you know. And once again, if you're an elect woman, this is not for you, But it still, should be able to, help you be more gracious and remain subjected to your husband, knowing that the Lord, he doesn't show favoritism at all. So at the end of the day, just want to bring that out. With that, just want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Shem Yahawashi, Shem Rakakadash. Double honors to all the apostles, the elders, teachers, preachers, priests, bishops that came before me, taught me this truth through the videos, starting with the apostles and elders, a great millstone. And Shalawam, peace be to you, to the holy elect, which I pray my number of. To next time, Yahawah willing.